What in the Rico Suave is going on here?
In his own version of I got locked up because they will not let him out. Prosecution is standing on business when it comes to Diddy getting out on bond. They are fearful that he will intimidate witnesses and obstruct justice.
He will.
And if you recall last week, Don Richard, for everyone who said I was saying her name incorrectly.
Shut up.
And her name is Don Richard. Don made some claims in her lawsuit that she and her ex-bandmate, Kalina Harper, saw Diddy do the unthinkable to Cassie Ventura. But Kalina came out and she was like, I don't know. I've never witnessed any abuse.
Kalina.
I don't know what you're talking about. And everybody was like, why would she do that? Now they're saying the day before Kalina actually made a statement, Diddy contacted her by phone 54 times.
54 times.
Why did Kalina make that statement? Now we seem to know. In court today, Diddy pled not guilty just as we thought he would.
I didn't do this stuff.
Right.
Diddy had a hard time in jail last night because Diddy said he is ready to pay $50 million to make sure that he does not see the inside of that jail again. And he gets out on bond. But Diddy is not giving the money in cash. He said, look, you can take my $48 million Miami mansion. Diddy said, hell, you can take my mama's house too. It ain't like she needed. Diddy was in there like,
I got some clothes.
I got some clothes.
I got some jewelry.
I got some jewelry.
The rest I got tied up in the
Diddy also said that he will wear an ankle monitor and remain only in South Florida and the NYC area. Diddy is over there fighting for his life. Y'all killing him with this. Diddy is going through it because guess what? He is facing a minimum sentence, if convicted, of 15 years. Now, just like I said in my last video, Diddy is very clever. He will try to use this, I came to New York so y'all can pick me
I turned
up.
myself
I
in.
want to surrender. He is going to use that to try to get out on bail. He ain't fooling nobody.
Nobody.
Diddy's attorney sent a letter to the judge and was like, look, my client has been cooperating with you. We've been known that y'all were getting ready to indict him. He's moved to New York to make sure that things were easier. He even stated that he will come in and turn himself in. He's trying to sell his airplane. He's willing to sell his mama's house. Diddy, every one of his daughters, and his mother have all given up their past.
Not love. Not love, Combs. That's the baby.
Diddy is not ready to see the inside of that jail again. He is like, let me out. It's up to the judge to decide if he will do that. Well, breaking news, everybody. The judge said, The judge sent him right back to jail without bond. As promised, Diddy's indictment has been unsealed.
At the federal courthouse in Lower Manhattan and hear more about the charges in this case.
Arson, bribery, and the obstruction of justice. Let me say a little bit more about the charges. The indictment alleges that Combs abused and exploited women and other people for years, and in a variety of ways. As alleged, Combs used force, threats of force, and coercion to cause victims to engage in extended sexual performances with male commercial sex workers, some of whom he transported or caused to be transported over state lines. Combs allegedly planned and controlled the sex performances, which he called freak-offs.
Freak-off.
And he often electronically recorded them. The freak-offs sometimes lasted days at a time, involved multiple commercial sex workers, and often involved a variety of narcotics, such as ketamine, ecstasy, and GHB.
Not ketamine.
Which Combs distributed to the victims to keep them obedient and compliant. As alleged, when Combs didn't get his way, he was violent, and he subjected victims to physical, emotional, and verbal abuse so that they would participate in the freak-offs, and that Combs hit, kicked, threw objects.
This got Cassie written all over it. Woo! That video.
At and dragged victims, at times by their hair. On one occasion in March of 2016, that conduct was captured on video and later reported in the media. Specifically, Combs kicked, dragged, and threw a vase at a victim in a Los Angeles hotel when the victim was attempting to flee. As alleged, these assaults often resulted in injuries to the victims, which took days or weeks to heal. In addition to the violence, the indictment alleges that Combs threatened and coerced victims to get them to participate in the freak-offs. He used the embarrassing and sensitive recordings he made of the freak-offs as collateral against the victims. And the indictment alleges that he maintained control over the victims in several ways, including by giving them drugs, by giving and threatening to take away financial support or housing, by promising them career opportunities, by monitoring their whereabouts, and even by dictating their physical appearance. Because of all of this, the indictment alleges that the victims did not believe they could refuse Combs without risking their security or facing more abuse. The indictment also alleges other acts of violence undertaken by Combs and others, including violence against witnesses to this abuse, kidnapping, and arson. The indictment alleges that on more than one occasion, Combs carried or brandished firearms to intimidate and threaten victims and witnesses. Now, Combs' investigation, in March of this year, special agents from HSI executed search warrants at Combs' residences in Miami and Los Angeles. They also executed a warrant for Combs' electronic devices. During those searches, agents seized evidence of the crimes charged in this indictment. They seized firearms and ammunition, including 3 defaced AR-15s and a large capacity drum magazine. They also seized evidence of the freak-offs, electronic devices that contain images and videos of the freak-offs with multiple victims.
You just had to record, didn't you? You just had to record yourself and record them. And, oh, God, this dude, you burnt yourself. You burnt your, what in the, don't touch the stove. Oh, Lord.
And they seized cases and cases of the kinds of personal lubricant and baby oil that Combs' staff allegedly used to stock hotel rooms for the freak-offs. More than 1,000 bottles altogether.
1,000?
Here are some of the items that we recovered during the searches.
1,000 bottles? What size?
As you can see here, this is a drum magazine, large capacity, and it contains, I believe, 59 rounds. I mentioned as well we recovered 3 AR-15s. This is a close-up shot of one of the AR-15s, and you can see right here the serial number has been thoroughly defaced.
So dirty.
Another picture of more ammunition and parts of 2 AR-15s right there.
Child, this dude.
Now, I want to be clear about 2 things. First, this office is determined to investigate and prosecute anyone who engages in sex trafficking, no matter how powerful or wealthy or famous you may be. No one should doubt our commitment on that. Amen.
Let's do it.
A year ago, Sean Combs stood in Times Square and was handed a key to New York City.
Oh, Lord.
Today, he's been indicted and will face justice in the Southern District of New York. Second, we are not done. This investigation is ongoing, and I encourage anyone with information about this case to come forward and to do it quickly. Anyone with information can call 1-877-4HSI-TIP.
So with a high-profile case and a high-profile defendant, I want to bring on somebody who knows a thing or two about defending high-profile clients, celebrities. I mean, he famously represented Bill Cosby in his sexual abuse trial. Also represented Meek Mill. Let me bring on now Brian.
You're looking good, Daddy.
McMonigal. Thank you so much for coming on, Brian. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
So, your reaction, is it what you expected?
You know, it was, and yet reading it took me back a little bit. It's quite stunning that he's been charged with a racketeering crime. You know, when you think of RICO, you think of a lot of things. You don't usually think of entertainers. But here we go. And it is rather staggering in terms of the accusations. You're talking about sex trafficking, you're talking about kidnapping, forced labor, and the like. And it's going to be a war. The charges couldn't be more serious. My guess is the government will seek pretrial detention, as they often do in cases like this. And he's got a really great lawyer, and he's going to need one.
Criminal conspiracy. How tough is that to prove? I mean, we know R. Kelly in New York, in the federal context, was charged, was found guilty, sentenced to 30 years in prison. But how tough is that to prove?
You know, RICO has always been an amazing tool for prosecutors, supposedly an easy lift. But when you look at it a little bit more carefully, the first thing they're going to have to prove is a criminal enterprise. Was this really a criminal enterprise, or was this simply a legitimate business that did some pretty despicable things, for lack of a better way to describe it? And the government's got to prove 2 predicate acts in order for there to be a racketeering conviction. So they've got a high burden of proof, but they've used a statute that time and time again has ensnared a lot of people and convicted a lot of people throughout the country because of its breadth. It is extremely broad, but it is not without limits.
And what the next part is a forfeiture allegation. So what they're saying is that with count 1, 2, and 3 of this indictment, if Diddy has received any funds, if he's bought any property, any cars, any planes, was purchased with the money from these illegal activities, he is to forfeit everything immediately because of the way he's received the funds illegally. And the next part is a substitute asset provision. So what they're pretty much saying is if Diddy tries to take funds and hides them overseas, if he tries to sell his properties to anyone else, the United States has the authority to seek forfeiture of any other property of the defendant up to the value of the above forfeitable property. That was a lot. I knew Diddy was doing exactly what I thought he would do. Start making phone calls, start threatening people. The feds waited for a time like this. They wanted to scare him up and see what he was going to do afterwards. I honestly expected to read a little bit more in this. However, they typically leave the real tea inside of the complaint, not the indictment. So we will see.